what we're looking at today is the Reform Tracker application, which allows you to track user activity when it comes to printing documents or copying documents out of an MSP, whether it's color or black and white. And what we're looking at here is basically a clean system that has just installed the Reform application, the Most application, and the Reform Tracker plugin. So far we haven't done any configuration. We've simply installed the software and began the evaluation. I configured Most to use our LDAP server so that it uses Windows authentication and can track the copies and print jobs according to my username. So the first thing that I'm going to do is demonstrate tracking copies on an MSP. And here I have a camera displayed over MFP that is currently unlocked, and basically anybody can walk up to it and make as many copies as they would like. So the first thing I'm going to do is install Most onto this MSP and enable the tracking feature. And to do that, I'm going to go to Start, Programs, Reform PDC, Most, and I'm going to click on the Install to MSPs shortcut. And here you can see the Control Center, which is a tool used for installing Most onto the MSPs. So the first thing I need to do is configure the software. And to do that, I'm going to go to Edit, Most Settings. And in the Settings dialog, I'm going to click on the Wizard button. The Wizard button basically makes the configuration much easier on the user. So here you can see my IP address and port number of the server, the default login window linking. I'm going to leave my lock panel to false. However, when I get to the copy counter screen, I would like to turn this on. And this is what's going to track the number of copies that are made while a user is logged into Most. The MSP username is the username of an administrator that can access the MSP. So basically, whatever username you would use to authenticate and web image monitor for that device, you would enter here. And then the password as well. And here in our settings, you can see the IP address is updated. And if I go to the Device tab, you can see Copy Counter is enabled. The username and password are entered. And I have the option to enable locking functions. And this is basically going to tell the MSP which functions should be locked when nobody is logged in. So here you can see Copy, Document Server, Scan, and Fax will all be locked if nobody is logged in. So I'm going to save these settings. And now I'm ready to install this to the MSP. So I'm just going to simply enter the IP address of the MSP and click on Start Scan. And in the background you can see the MSP has kind of woken up when the scan began. Now I can click Next. Here you can see the MSP that I have selected, and I'm going to install Most. And in a moment here, we should see the MSP screen be displayed with Most. And now we can see Most is successfully installed, and I can close the Control Center. Now on the MSP, you can see the login screen for Most is displayed. And what I'm going to demonstrate is if I switch to the copy screen or any other screen, they will now be locked up. Here you can see if I go to copy, it's requesting a user code before I can make a copy. Or same with the document server, fax, and scanner. Now what I'm going to do is basically add an additional screen to Most so that we can see how many copies I have left. as well as we need to configure how many copies I can make as a user. So the first thing I'm going to do on the server side is install the new screens for Tracker to the Most application. So here I'm going to go to my Start menu and into Reform PDC, Reform Tracker, and click on the Install Most screen. And when it asks me if I would like to import this screen into Most, I'm just going to click on Yes, and now it's imported. The next thing I want to do is give the users the ability to see this screen. And what this screen will display is basically how many copies the user has left. So I'm going to go to Data, Users and Groups, select Domain Users, and give them the ability to see the Tracker screen. I save my changes, and now we're done configuring the screens. The next thing I want to do is configure the limits for my user. This can also be done on a group basis based on the groups within your LDAP system. And to do that, I'm going to go to Start, go Reform PDC, and I'm going to click on the Workflow Designer. Now I'm going to go to File, New, to create a new workflow. And the type of workflow I would like to create is document restrictions. So here I'm going to basically limit or record the number of copies based on a user or a group. So here I just want to drag my user or group onto the screen. And now I can configure it just by double-clicking on it. And here you can configure your users or your groups. And to do this, I'm just going to simply select the user that I'm logging in as and entering the domain that I'm a part of. And it's going to query my LDAP to get any matches or usernames that match my query. And now we've selected the account that we would like to limit. The next thing I would like to do is configure my MFP restrictions. So in the same fashion, I'm just going to drag that restriction icon over onto my workflow and just give it a name. And now I can connect my user to this limit. Now it'll ask me if I'd like to configure my limits, and I said yes. So now we can begin configuring the MFP for my account. So the first thing I'm going to do is unlock copying, faxing, scanning, and a document server when I log in. Next thing I can do is allow black and white copies to be made when nobody is logged into Most. This is used only if you want to begin tracking color documents. I can also set the limits based on an IP address or serial number of an MFP. Here I can set the number of black pages or color pages that my account is permitted to make. Let's do this. So 1 black page and 5 color pages. In the restrictions, I want to schedule an automatic resetting of the limits. And I could choose when to start the resetting process, as well as how often it should occur. So I'm going to have the limits reset on a monthly basis. And now I can commit my changes. Okay, so now that my changes are saved, I can close the Workflow Designer. And I'm going to go back to the MFP and attempt to make a copy. So here we can see the copy screen is still locked out. And what I'm going to do is basically log into Most using my LDAP credentials. And we can see here the first screen that appears is the tracker screen, which displays the limits that are assigned to my account. And we can see the same numbers that I configured in my workflow designer. I am allowed to make 1 black and white copy and 5 color copies. It also displays that the functions that I have access to are copy, document server, fax, and scan. So here what I'm going to do is basically I'm going to scan 5 pages of color. And we can see that it allowed me to copy my documents. Now on the most screen I can log out. And at this point it's going to transmit my activity back to the server, where the server is then going to keep track of it. And for the server to keep track of it, there is a service required to process the information. I'm just going to verify the service is running. So here I just want to click on Start. Now, when my account logs into the MFP again, we can see here now I have only one black and white copy, and my color copies has gone down to 0. Now if my user attempts to make another color copy, what he will see is on the copy screen, black and white is permitted. However, if they switch to full color, it'll ask them to enter a PIN code. The same thing will happen if they select auto color select. So at this point my account only permits black and white copies. If I was to make another black and white copy and make my black and white copy limit go down to 0, I wouldn't be permitted to make any other copies. So we've tracked the information that my user has made at the MFP, and what we can do is we can actually view that information up on the server. And to do that we have a report viewer that we can demonstrate here. To view the reports of the user activity, we simply go to Start, Programs, Reform PDC, Reform Tracker, and we want to click on the Tracker Reporting icon. Here you have an interface that allows you to select a date range as well as several filters to determine what you would like to see in your report. And I'm just going to retrieve my data and look at my user summary. The different available reports basically display different pieces of information about your environment. When I click on Generate Report, we'll see a graph demonstrating what my user has copied at the MFP. And we can see 5 color pages have been copied. If I click on this, it'll bring me to another report that actually displays a little bit more detailed information. It'll tell me the date and time that the copy was made, the serial number of the device. You can see 5 color copies. And it allows you to basically have a better understanding on what occurred in your environment. Now if I make just one additional black and white copy, we could see how the report is affected by that. So I've made one additional copy. And if I refresh my report, you can see now it displays I've made one black and white copy and 5 color. And there's several different ways of displaying this within the reports. Again, in the details you can see more information and the date and time that the copies were made. So that covers all of the basics regarding the copies and how to track them.